So we're joined from the beautiful Pompano Beach, Florida, down in South Florida by Jacqueline Jimenez, multiple entrepreneur, just so many things that she's had her hands in. We thank you so much for joining us today. This is our entrepreneurship class here at Velma Jackson High School. I've got a room full here with me, and we are recording this for all of our friends in Madison County schools, Ridgeland High School, Madison Central High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
Well, I am very honored to be here. And hello to everyone. It's so exciting.
Thank you. We're excited to have you. Now, obviously, you have newsworthy stories, you have the Guys Girl Creations, but you're originally from Florida and you went to school at Florida State University, home of the Seminoles, and you majored in something that was not entrepreneurial. So, take us through your college experience and how you kind of became an entrepreneur because it's two really cool businesses you were really crushing it in.
Well, I'll tell you first of all, I am a military brat. So my father was in the Air Force for 20 years, and so we lived around the world, but we
Wow.
retired. He retired in Florida. And so from all that travel, when he retired, and I thought to myself, we're going to live in Florida forever. That was the first thought I had. And so I was, me and my sister, I should say, we were bribed into believing that we were going to go to Disney World every day. So that was not true, but that's how they got us to calm down and, try to enjoy Florida. So that's how I got here. But I say that because it was that traveling when it came time to decide what did I want to do with my life? Um, and I began to think of what I really loved, and I loved traveling. And my mother was a newsaholic. And so, with her watching news every day, I go, hey, those guys travel a lot, as a reporter. And I liked, I enjoyed stories. I enjoyed, the fact that it was different, it was unique. It wasn't going to be boring. That was big for me. I was very active. And so that's kind of how I came up with my uh, decision to go into the business of news. Entrepreneurship should be something or anything you do, whether you become an entrepreneur or whether you become an entrepreneur, which you probably have talked about, whether you work for a corporation and have a side hustle, you should have one or the other. Be an entrepreneur or have a side hustle, because it's very important today to do that. So that's how I kind of got into uh, the newsroom, and I actually started in radio. My first job out of college, went to Florida State, like you said. First job out of college, I was in radio, and then simultaneously. And I was on air, wasn't, I was on air, had a show, and actually had a talk show. And I did that for around 3.5 years. But then eventually became a writer. That was my first, step in. So one of the things I should tell you, no matter what you do as an entrepreneur, learn how to write.
Absolutely.
It is introduction to so many things. If you can write, tell a story, or anything like that. But just being able to, you're going to need it for preparation for anything, research. A lot of times, even administration, you can be an amazing administrator. There's so many people in charge that have no administrative skills at all. And it's so important. You know those people, I can see the smile on your face. But news is an incredible field. It's not boring. And it is something that you do use writing skills, but even those writing skills, you really throw them out the window because in television in particular, you write conversationally. And so your grammar, a lot of that kind of gets thrown out of the window a little bit because you learn to write as people speak. And that's it.
Yeah, and obviously you've turned that into a great business with newsworthy stories. But you also, for over 20 years, have had a greeting card and apparel company. So tell us where that came from because that's really you have some really cool stuff you have on there.
Well, here's the thing about it. I have found that it all coincides with one another. Both of them are really writing based, writing cards. One is inspirational based. I asked for help, and now even out of that, I have a show I just did recently. I finally did this show that I said I was going to do forever, and that was to talk about how the greeting cards led to the newsroom or how it impacted the newsroom. And so these cards were really born out of the fact that I had a boss and he lost his father. And so what I did was I pretty much prayed over it because these are inspirational greeting cards. And again, how do you find your entrepreneurship, your business? How do you decide it? For me, it all just came from what I was doing every day. So you don't even have to look far to discover what it is you love most or what it is you are really good at. Focus on the things that you're good at
Yeah.
and then build on it. If you see yourself doing something down the line, whatever comes to your mind and you dream it, start with step one. So for me, step one with my cards, I had started writing them for so many years. This boss of mine lost his father. I ended up praying, receiving words, if you will. I wrote down the words that I thought, not that I thought, I wrote down the words that came in my mind. And but they were very specific to his needs. We were a management consulting firm at this particular time. And he had to deal with these executives from around the world. They were one of the top management consulting firms. And so being able to write to that and put it on a blank note card. This is how I did it. I wrote it on a blank note card, and I didn't have cards at that time. These cards were not born out of like, oh, let me think of something cute to say. First of all, that's not how these cards were born. These cards were actually born out of what I call life's occasions. And so there were people who had situations in their lives. Some of them were for, um, needed encouragement, like I said, death. Um, Others were sadness, they were loneliness, they were uh, different situations, or even just reading in my Bible. But they were born out of something. It wasn't until I decided to make them into a greeting card company that someone was like, I need a birthday card. I need a Christmas card. I was like, well, I didn't write about that. You know, that's not what I was writing about. I was writing about endurance, don't give up, and, encouragement cards and things like that, to help people move forward with their lives. And again, this is something that people needed. So what? As an entrepreneur, you're going to fill a need, even though I wasn't looking to fill that need. But what would happen is those same cards that I used to write on a blank note card, I would always keep the original piece of paper.
Wow.
And then later I began to learn how to make the card. And what happened is I began to hear similar situations. And I was like, wow, that card that I wrote a while ago, that person could benefit from that card. And so I realized they weren't just for my friends. And I go, oh, wow, I gave them in a blank note card. I bet I can make a card. And that's how that first home business was born.
That's incredible.
But all of this was simultaneously as I was already working in news, already working in radio. And again, I didn't plan on it becoming a business. It just kind of came. Newsworthy Stories is born out of something a little bit different. It's from by the time I created Newsworthy Stories as a name, if you will, I had worked in newsrooms for 22 years and in the business over 30. And but always a freelancer. So I've always also done commercials, documentaries, corporate
Yeah.
videos, you know, outside of news. And so I've always so today Newsworthy Stories does what? I I'll tell the story like a news story, but I highlight it like a corporate video
Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
news can't really do so much because news is what do you call it? They're financed through commercials. So if I'm doing
Yeah.
a free commercial for you in a story, why is this other guy paying for it? So part of my job as Newsworthy Stories is I teach businesses and organizations how to turn the angle of that story so it doesn't sound like a commercial. Because there's so many stories born out of the business community that are not being told.
Yeah, and that's so cool in your concept because you're an entrepreneur that works with entrepreneurs, and that has become more and more common, especially since COVID. We just there's so many small businesses that now can work with you remote and still give you a great service to help promote your business. Because, like you said, with newsworthy stories, somebody may have artisan soaps, just first thing I thought of, but they don't know anything about how to promote it. You see so many, and I see a lot of young people. We've had several young people come to this class that have started businesses and they're in the TikTok mindset. They're in the Instagram mindset of just trying to reach high school students. But if you really want to reach a larger audience, sometimes you have to reach out to people like yourself to say, look, here's what I'm trying to do. How do I reach these people? That doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean that you can't learn it as well. But in order to reach a wider audience and to maximize your profit, you've got to learn to tell that story.
Well, let me tell you why I was so excited that you reached out, Mr. Pygon. And that's because I teach businesses how to use their phones. We are
Wow.
generating news coverage with our phones. And that's why if your students learn now while they're in school how to use their phones to generate news coverage, you can do this today. If you have weather video, everyone has been dealing with some kind of weather video over this past couple of weeks, right? If you were sending weather video to your local news station, so what you do is you go on their websites and you look up or call them and ask for the email address for the assignment desk. The assignment desk. I want you to write that down if you've done nothing else, and get it for the local ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox affiliates. That way, when you already have that, and what you do is you do the same thing like you would do with any story. You give them the who, what, where, when, and why. So you tell them who to contact, and then you write down, hey, this is why you should cover it. Give them a nice little headline. You know, the tree fell on this car. We'll just say it for lack of, visuals right now. Tree fell on this car, happened in whatever in Camden, Mississippi. Uh, in at our school at Velma Jackson High School, all the students are rallying around to take that tree off of the car, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
So, you know, so you got to give them a reason to come cover it. But I want to tell you something more important than that. Those are the kinds of stories you normally hear about. What do you hear about? Murder, accidents, weather, politics. These are not the only things news wants to cover. If I don't say anything else, I want you to understand that. Those are the stories that are easily accessible to the newsroom. News is live. 5 o'clock comes at the same time every day. So they have to be able to cover stories that they can turn around quickly and still get on the air. So as a producer, we used to fight over the kinds of stories that you see on my website or on my new YouTube channel because we wanted something, anything that wasn't negative, wasn't murder,
Yeah.
wasn't mayhem. And believe me, the reporters want that too because I mean the reporters have PTSD, covering that stuff every day, just like the police officers, because they're right there next to them, out there covering, talking to the families. It's a tough job. It's not for everyone. And that's something to remember because as a reporter, you don't have as much say over the stories that you cover. Producers are the managers of the newscast. Or if you're a field producer, you're out there in the field deciding what the interview's about. They have a little more control. Producers have more control. News directors have more control. Assignment editors have more control over what is being shown on a nightly basis, which is a lot of power. I didn't realize that when I became a producer, that pretty much what we were deciding for our whole community what was newsworthy.
Wow.
But you understand, hear that loud and clear, guys. But today you have what? You have social media, which is why social media is very great and very horrible. Because what surprised me when I started producing news stories for social media is I quickly realized that people were treating my stories just like they came from the networks. And in my case, that's fine because I'm an actual news producer. I'm a network news producer. That makes sense. But I know that that's not the case for everybody, meaning a lot of people are putting content out there and they're not checking the facts. They're not verifying the information. They are spreading rumors, right? And so immediately, Newsworthy Stories as a business had to change. I could not just be a media production company. I had to be a digital news agency because the people were treating my stories like they came from the networks. They were believing everything I put out there. That meant my integrity behind every story, everything that came, even if I'm interviewing somebody, that person cannot come on my show and say anything. That is not happening. You know? You're not going to come and spread lies, or you're not going to come and bash another company without me saying something like, hey, you know, we don't do that, or that's not really the case. I'm going to say something about it, or I'm going to cut it out. It's just not going to end up on my show. So integrity is critical to no matter any business you have, because people, if they can trust you, that's really what they want. And they're not, no matter what business you go into, it's not about the products you're selling. It's more about who you are. That's what people are buying into more than anything. They're buying into who's behind this product. What um, what do they care about? What are they supporting? Are
Yeah.
they impacting the community? And that's what people really are buying into first. So if you have two companies selling the same thing, but I know this company right here is making an effort to support schools or to um, protect the environment or whatever the case is, and it's something that you care about, or they donate to the veterinarian or the pet, whatever it is. But if it's something that resonates with you, guess what you're going to do? You're going to buy from them. Not that that person has a
Yep.
better product,
Yep.
but you're going to buy from them. And so you really need to do your research. That's a word that nobody, some people go, yay, no problem. But it doesn't usually take a lot of research, but you do need to do some research. And before you partner with anyone, before you collaborate with anyone, even if they have a lot of money, if their messaging doesn't match your messaging, don't partner with them
Yep.
because people are going to see you. They're going to take whoever you partner with and they're going to say, oh, they're just like them. And that is a very dangerous road. Now, as far as the media goes for business, news media is great. Television, if you get news coverage for your business, what does it do? It automatically gives you credibility for the same reasons I just talked about. People are not doing their research, okay? So but they trust news that if news says this nonprofit or this business, or they do a story about it, people just automatically think because news did that story that that business or nonprofit is automatically okay. But that's not really necessarily the case, but people don't do their research. But if news says, hey, this nonprofit needs such and such, guess what? People are going to donate to it. And usually the next day you hear that all these, all the money that they've raised in one day, but it's not because everybody went and did research on that nonprofit. No, they just believe the media. That's how that's how powerful the media is.
Yeah,
I can't even begin to, there are no
yeah,
words,
yeah,
but you now
absolutely,
have
and
that.
and more so now than ever. And I love how you talked about people see something and buy. Sales is the ultimate mental game, and something that we've been talking about is grabbing a customer's attention. So you could have the best product in the world, you could have the best plan, you could have the best customer service skills, but if you can't grab the person's attention, they're not going to spend the money. So that's why having finding a way to tell the story is so important, and using social media for good. Because like you said, there's a lot of bad things, but there's a lot of good things. People have made millions off of using social media the right way.
They do, and you should be encouraged to do that. And you can make a business out of just about anything. So don't let anyone tell you you can't, because I tell you you can, because I can write a story about just about anything, to be honest. The one thing I don't know that you know is the USDA, Natural Resources Conservation Service, and a company called AMPS Institute. We have, over the last 2 years, have been going and holding these youth entrepreneurship retreats,
Wow.
mostly in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And just recently, the last few months, we were in Alabama. I don't know if we're coming to Mississippi, but if we do, you will be the first to know. We
Wow.
take high school and college age students. And what they're doing is generating interest in the field of agriculture, because you might not realize it, but agriculture touches everything, everything. What you wear, the products that you use to wash your hair, cosmetics, engineering. I've learned so much over the last 2 years, but and they are throwing money at this industry because the industry is aging. So what we do is we do this pitch competition during this retreat, and we go out and interview the farmers, and we go out and interview the people in that tech industry in agriculture. I mean, because agriculture is going high tech. So just like everything else. But what? The farmers don't really know how to use it. So they need apps, they need marketing, they need everything that any other business needs. Farmers need it today. And the USDA is throwing millions of dollars at this
Wow.
industry. So before you go and pick an industry, consider that one. And so what they do is they listen to the problems the farmers are having, and then their job is to build a business around solving it. So the best entrepreneurs build a business around solving a problem.
Yep.
And that's how you that's how you decide what you're going to do is you need to solve a problem. There's not a
Yep.
problem to solve, and solve one that needs to be over and over again. Um, exactly. We will
Yeah, and I'm
always
glad.
need encouragement. So
I'm just glad you
no,
mentioned
I was
agriculture,
yeah.
because that's something we've been talking about in my one of my other classes. And we had a agriculture professor from Oklahoma State University. We had another small business owner, farmer in Indiana, and we have two great agribusiness programs in Mississippi at Mississippi State University and Alcorn State University, our land grant HBCU. And you are 100% correct. Agriculture is a hot spot for entrepreneurs right now.
It is because it's aging. The industry is aging, not just the farmers, but the people in leadership in Washington. Everyone's over 55. Okay? We need the real leaders. And that industry is begging for youth. And that's what, and guess what I shoot with when I go and cover these stories for the USDA? I go and I shoot with my phone and my iPad and I turn stories. So if you go to ampsinstitute.com, you will see how that whole thing works. And
Wow.
maybe if I think I can tell you that in October, I believe we're going to be in Savannah.
Oh,
That's
cool.
close if you can get there, Savannah. And sometimes, apply anyway. As I would,
Yeah.
because we've flown people in
Yeah, and I'll
from
definitely
different
get that
places.
AMP Institute information to our community college agriculture programs here in the area. But I do have some questions from the students. I'll get to as many of these as I can. This
Okay.
first is Shirai Luckett. He's in 10th grade. And he asked, being a military brat and in television has taken you all types of different places. So what is the favorite place you've ever been to?
Italy is my favorite place in the world.
Wow.
I it is definitely, it's just South Florida was living in South Florida was as close as I could get to having all the nations in one place.
Yeah.
So that's why I ended up in South Florida, originally in Miami. I lived in Miami first, went out to California for 12 years, and then returned to South Florida. But Italy, I enjoy the history that Italy offers. I love the beach. The people were just nice. The food is amazing. So I just had a very good experience there. But it's also just the history.
Yeah.
I love history.
Yeah, it's definitely on my bucket list. This is Terry Thompson. He's a senior. And he asked, what is the biggest hardship you've had to face while creating your businesses?
Ooh, staying encouraged. You got to encourage you. Encourage yourself, because you know what? Unfortunately, sometimes the people closest to you or the people you want to support you are not necessarily on board with you because they know all your faults. Okay.
Yeah.
So, convincing somebody of what you're doing isn't always easy. So sometimes you have to go it alone. I should even say sometimes, expect to go it alone. They'll come on board eventually, but they have to see the steps that you take first. And so if those people don't come on board with you and you have a calling, and entrepreneurship to me is a calling. It is something that draws you and draws you. You can't let go. Every time you try to put it down, it'll keep calling you back. And so just keep taking that one step at a time and keep, you know, trying. For the card business, I didn't know how to make cards. I was a tomboy. Craft making is not something, I am not a craft person at all. I play pool, ride motorcycles. That's me. So when it came to craft, making a card by myself, I was actually trying to make a demo for somebody else to make. Um,
Wow.
but what did I do? I found out what are cards made out of? I knew it wasn't the same paper. So I went to a card company. I mean, someone told me there's cardstock. I go, oh, okay. I did a little research. I looked up one thing. What are cards made out of? Cardstock. I found a paper company that sold what? Cardstock. And I ordered it. Or actually, there was one locally. I could drive to it. So I went there
Wow.
and looked around and I found something I thought, hey, people might like this, but they really like the parchment paper, looking paper, I should say. But yeah,
That's awesome.
you have
I
to
got time for
try.
one more. I got time for one more. This is Destiny Smith. She's a senior. And she asked, what advice would you give to a young person that wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Find something you really love first, and then determine how to be profitable doing it. So find the problems that need to be solved with the thing that you love to do most instead of finding a job that makes money or you're an industry you think makes money and then trying to build a business in it because you think those people make money doing it and then you build a business in it. If you don't love what you're doing, entrepreneurship is something that you have to make you keep going. Okay? So if you're going to be able to keep you going, make you keep yourself going, it has to be something you love. It has to be results that when you see it, you're like, I am making a difference. I am being purposeful. I matter. Oh boy. That's big.
That's
Matter
awesome.
with what you do.
Absolutely. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for taking some time for us. I just think it's so cool to have two completely different businesses, but still have that mindset that brings them together. But before we go, a couple things. Tell us where to find your stuff online because you have the websites where they can see all the stuff you're doing.
Okay, well, I would go to Newsworthy, news like NEWSWORTHY.com. Even though my business is Newsworthy Stories, IES, my website is Newsworthy Story. I would also connect with me on LinkedIn. You're in high school, you can make a LinkedIn page. You probably can.
Yeah.
Connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you don't know, find out. And then God's Girl Greetings. I am moving a lot of godsgirlgreetings.com to the Etsy to an Etsy page.
Wow.
So
Cool.
I would look at godsgirlgreetings.com, online, which is fine. But I'm starting to move it over. You know why? Because after COVID, I never pivoted that particular company. And what am I going to do? I'm going to go to team building. So you'll have the cards. Yes, you can still buy them. But because I love to create, it's better to do it in a group. So team building it is.
Absolutely.
So
All right, now the last
be
thing before we go,
versatile.
yeah, absolutely. Oh, I agree. Now the last thing before we go is, why is it so necessary? And we're getting ready to celebrate Black History Month here in the next few days. So why is it so necessary that these young Black kids understand that they are so needed as business owners for the future of our great country?
Well, we're great consumers. We love to buy things, but it's important to have your own for the next generation, something to pass down to the next generation. Nobody can fire you from your own company. Nobody can lay you off from your company. But more so, from my understanding, I have not done the research on this, but I've heard it many times said that um, Black companies hire more Black people. And so you're actually employ it will help employ more Black people overall. And overall you will build wealth in the Black community. So that's another good reason to do that. I would also recommend they look at the ICABA worldnetwork.com. And you can join as a student, and they are accomplished Black professionals, which you should connect with,
Yeah,
Mr. Pygott, Jerome Hutchinson Jr. He's a great person to connect with to give you more individuals to come to mentor your students. And they're all over the world. So I know they're in Mississippi.
that's awesome.
I know they're.
Well,
I love what you're doing, by the way. So first of all, I want to commend you, Mr. Pygott, for what you're doing because you don't have to. I hope you students appreciate what he's doing, and I hope you're benefiting from it. I appreciate the questions. I'm so honored. I would love to see a picture of you all. Send me a picture. And if you want to ask me questions anytime, newsworthystories@outlook.com is my email.
awesome.
And
And
you
and
can
like I
call
said,
me. Yeah.
and we'll send this to all of our other schools as well. So, and again, and I appreciate the kind words, but it's
Awesome.
never been about me. It's about giving people like you a platform and being able to expose our kids to different things. So we really appreciate you taking some time for us today. Jacqueline Jimenez, all the way down in Pompano Beach, Florida. We thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
You.
All right, talk to you soon, my friend.
Hey, thank you so much. Have a great day, guys.
See ya.